Welcome to round 3 of the 2024 South African Rally Raid Championship, where all the action is brought to you by Toyota, Team Hilux Rally Raid, Ford, Castrol and ICANN. This is the big one, the only marathon event on the calendar and the spiritual replacement of the iconic desert race. Welcome back to Rally Raid Racing with the Tgrsa Safari 1000. The Tgrsa Safari 1000 may be a new name on the calendar, but the location for the race, which served as round 3 of the 2024 SARRC, featured in 2023 as well. But then it was used as the Waterberg 400, whereas this time the event was bigger and better than ever. This was because it replaced the Tgrsa Kalahari Botswana 1000 desert race on this year's calendar, and as such it featured a total race distance of nearly 1,000 kilometers. But why the decision to leave Botswana and the desert race behind after so many successful years of sponsorship? Here's Toyota SA Motors Vice President of Marketing, Glenn Crompton, with some insight.
Obviously, it really was a difficult decision for us to move away from Botswana. Motor racing is all about the crowds and the passion of the people, but it got almost uncontrollable there. I mean, there were people that nearly got badly hurt, there were the cars that burnt out, so it just became too big of an event for us to control. So obviously we don't want to walk away from the desert race as an event and a sort of marathon stage. This was really critical, and bringing it here was a good alternative. I think there's still things to be learned.
With that said, the Tgrsa Safari 1000 had big boots to fill, and the organisers certainly stepped up. This race featured amazing opportunities for fans to interact with the race crews, fantastic spectating, and a festive atmosphere in the DSP, which was situated at the Kuduskorp Primary School. The school was also the site of the Bushveld Big Brag, which took place on the Friday evening of the race, giving attendees the chance to mingle with the drivers and navigators, to enjoy some lamb and venison on the spit, and to boogie the night away with the on-site DJ and marimba band. But despite the festive atmosphere, the Tgrsa Safari 1000 was still a serious affair, and more than serving as the only marathon event on the 2024 calendar, it was also a candidate event for the inclusion in the 2025 FIA World Rally Raid Championship calendar. As such, officials from the FIA were in attendance to evaluate the event, as Jerome Russell of the FIA explains.
What is impressive is that the size, the quality of this national championship. It's definitely the biggest rally raid national championship in the world. Many T1 Plus cars, which is really exciting. Good level of presentation of the teams. A lot of enthusiasm, many brands. You feel that it's organized in a professional way, but with a very convivial atmosphere.
But it wasn't only the international observers who were happy to be in Kuduskorp near Thabazimbi for round 3 of the 2024 SARRC. Brand South Africa was also in attendance, and we spoke to Kutulo Matlocha, Activations Officer for Brand SA, who explained their involvement in the race.
So sport is one of those sports that has been identified, especially car racing. These are one of the low-hanging fruits that we have not tapped into. So we saw an opportunity to profile South Africa as one of the best countries to host international events.
At the same time, Motorsport South Africa's Vic Maharaj attended his first Rally Raid race and was clearly impressed by the level of both the event and the competitors.
I'm pretty much blown away. The level of professionalism, of the team, the organizers is just simply unbelievable. I think if I could encourage any fan, any motorsport enthusiast, you've got to come and watch an event of this nature.
But before we get into the details of the Tgrsa Safari 1000, let's take a look at the championship standings after rounds 1 and 2. It was Tgrsa's Janelle de Villiers who drew first blood by winning the opening round of the season in Malalan at the Nkomazi 400. Teammate Guy Bottrell bagged the points for second place, while young Jaden Els rounded out the podium. At round 2 in Vryheid, it was de Villiers who rounded out the podium, while Bottrell recorded his second of the season. Henk Lategan took the top step in KZN, putting 3 of the Tgrsa crews at the top of the standings. So after 2 rounds, it was de Villiers who held a narrow margin over Bottrell, with Lategan in third just ahead of Chris Visser. For Blickno, Els and Johan Horn followed closely behind, while Lance Woolridge found himself in 8th place as the first of the 2 factory Fords. Notably, Hunterbrain made his way into 10th place as the first of the adventure class drivers, an excellent performance in a field dominated by cars in the ultimate class.
It's the jewel in the crown of the SA Rally Raid Championship, the Tgrsa Racing Safari 1000, the third round of the championship, and we are here in the Waterberg. Leading the way as we head over to the Castrol qualifier, we've got Henk Lansing and Brett Cummings. Of course, they captured victory over in round 2. However, they're going to be challenged aplenty by the likes of their teammates. We've got Guy Bottrell alongside Dennis Murphy. We've also, of course, got Janelle de Villiers and Alvin Fong, who lead the championship courtesy of a first place finish and a third place finish so far. However, if we look back to this event last year, 1,000 kilometers of racing, it was the men from Ford, Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer, who captured the victory. Red versus blue, once again, it's the story of the championship. Who's going to come out on top here in the Waterberg?
Well, to answer that question, our first stop had to be with the man topping the tables going into round 3. Tgrsa Racing SA's Janelle de Villiers.
Lots of friendly people here. We always have a good reception. So yeah, looking forward to the race, and hopefully we can get a good result.
Arguably, the momentum had to be with his teammate Henk Lansing, who was fresh of his first victory for the year. But Lansing has traditionally struggled at the desert race, and we had to know if he was expecting another uphill battle.
It's a tricky one, let's say strategy-wise. I don't think if you tried to plan it, you probably couldn't, because there's a lot of things that are still going to happen in the 1,000 kilometers.
Guy Bottrell was the best performing Tgrsa driver at last year's desert race and headed into round 3 just 2 points behind de Villiers. As such, he had every reason to be positive, but the Durbanites still had healthy respect for the upcoming race.
The pace is really hot, so I think the guys are going to go out really hard. These cars are really strong, so they can take quite a lot of driver abuse before they break. So,
at the same time, the lads in blue weren't going to let Toyota have it all their own way in the Waterberg. As a matter of fact, the previous desert race was won by one of the Ford crews, and last time out at this venue, it was also a Ford that triumphed. So no reason for the Ford boys to sit back and watch Toyota take the spoils.
I think it's going to be a difficult race. I mean, it's never easy. We're up against 4 Toyotas. Any one of the top 6 cars is capable of winning at any time. So,
Brother Gareth has had a tough start to the season, but was quite positive about the upcoming race.
I hope we've sorted everything now. Boyd and I have been good, which has been the frustration, but it happens sometimes.
While the factory teams may have been the favourites to win the Safari 1000, one privateer who had previously won the desert race had newfound optimism. Chris Visser is a stalwart of the sport, and with significant testing mileage under his belt, he was very positive about his chances in the latest version of the Redline River GTR.
I'm looking very forward to this event. The guys put a lot of effort in to get the car a little bit better, and it's actually much better at the moment.
Finally, one more privateer who has made his mark this season is Fushia Blickno of #Team Hilux. The burly transport kingpin is only in his 3rd season of Rally Raid racing, but has already shown plenty of raw talent. He had a simple plan for the weekend, despite the intimidating length of the race.
Look, it's still a special event, and we're very fortunate to run in front with the privateers. We've got some little luck on our side, and yeah, we can just keep on going.
With all that said, it was time for the crews to line up for the Castrol qualifying race at the Tgrsa Safari 1000. At only 13.7 kilometers in length, nobody was going to win the race on the qualifier. But with plenty of dust being kicked up and very little wind to clear the way, a solid road position would be key, and that was the primary purpose of the Castrol qualifying race. To determine the starting order for Stage 1, which would follow later the same day. It was a crisp start to the longest race of the year, as the sun barely peeked over the trees at Kuduskorp. But at precisely 9:30 on Friday, 21st of June, it was go time in Limpopo. The route featured a mix of terrain ranging from the rocky traverses to fast sweeps around farmland pivot points. It may not have been particularly long, but the Castrol qualifier was a stern opening test for the competing crews, and making it into the top 10 was a challenging prospect. Yet this was the aim amongst the leaders, as a spot in the coveted top 10 would put you into the draw for a starting position. which could prove pivotal given the fine dust that marked the majority of the Safari 1000 route. Eben Basson and Leander Pinard, driving a Class T1 #Team Hilux Rally Raid Toyota Hilux, finished just 38 seconds off the pace. This was a remarkable achievement, given the fact that they were mixing it up with their normally aspirated V8 engine car, despite the rest of the cars in the top 10 featuring turbocharged engines, bigger tires and more suspension travel.
This is a nice race, a long race. We said to ourselves, we're just going to take it easy and climb the ladder and make sure we finish without any punches.
Another #Team Hilux Rally Raid crew, this time behind the wheel of a big-wheel turbocharged Toyota Hilux, posted the 9th best time, just a single second ahead of their teammates. Fischer and Baptist Blickner had been steadily increasing their pace over the last few seasons, and by going 9th fastest, they made their intentions at the Safari 1000 crystal clear.
I think the key is you must look after your vehicle, stay in the bakkie. I mean, don't waste unnecessary time outside the bakkie, and I mean, my luck is as good as the next one.
Despite a broken side shaft which nearly brought their race to a premature halt, Daniel Schroeder and Ryan Bland finished just 31 seconds behind pole position in their brand new WCT Amarok. A solid debut for the new car, with plenty of expectation for the remainder of the race. Janelle de Villiers and Alvin Fonk in their Tgrsa Hilux IMT Evo finished 26 seconds off the lead. The Dakar legend made no mistakes, though some of the crews found a shorter way through some of the brush, putting them ahead of the Tgrsa Hilux IMT crew.
Clean run, happy to be here, so yeah, all good so far.
Prior to the start of the race, Chris Fiss and Albertus Venter was telling us that their red line Revo T1 Plus GTR was better than ever, thanks to solid progress in the development of the car. This was clear for all to see as the burly farmer finished the stage just 23 seconds adrift, good enough for 6th place in qualifying. Tgrsa's Guy Bottrell and Dennis Murphy in one of the 4 Hilux IMT Evos finished just 22 seconds behind the leaders. The Durbanite transitioned to Rally Raid from rallying some time ago and has steadily been finding more and more pace. He was the best performing factory Toyota driver at Dakar 2024, and a solid qualifier here in Limpopo ensured that he'd stay in the mix for the main event.
I don't think it's too bad. I wouldn't really want to win today because you're going to open the road tomorrow. So let someone else do that and we'll follow their tracks.
And so we reached the podium positions, except we're only up to 4th place. But since young Sahud Variol and Francois Cazelet in another Tgrsa Hilux IMT Evo matched times with Brian Baragwanath and Leonard Kramer in their Century Racing CR7 Twin Turbo, we guessed that putting them both on the podium makes more sense than relegating them to 4th. Be that as it may, the Toyota crew and the Century crew both posted times 19 seconds behind the leaders, putting them right in the midst of the action.
We still get the desert feel here, and it still is a proper race in terms of the vegetation. We missed the crowds in Botswana for sure, but yeah, here we are.
And then there was Jaden Els, partnered with Henry Kierner. The youngster had shown significant pace during qualifying this year, taking pole position not all that long ago. And here he was again, right at the sharp end of the field. His deficit to the leader, just 2 seconds, clearly showing an abundance of talent from the SVR driver.
It was a fun qualifying, lots of fast, flowy sections, a lot of commitment, and I must give it to Henk for opening the road and putting up that time.
And finally, the top step of the Castrol qualifying podium. Henk Lardekan and Brett Cummings in the Tgrsa Hilux IMT Evo set the fastest time of 8 minutes and 38 seconds, giving them first choice for starting position for the main event. The pair were fresh from victory on round 2 of the championship and clearly had momentum on their side as they run to another pole position here in the Waterberg.
Fortunately, last year with my shoulder, I was out. I didn't do this race, so for me to open against the guys that already know where they're going would be a tough ask. So we're going to take the risk of the dust and see what we can do from there.
There were a few notable mishaps during the qualifier. Johannes van der Horn in a #Team Hilux Rally Raid DKR Hilux suffered a burst rear tyre, forcing them to finish lower in the order than anticipated. Similarly, the Dutch couple Dave and Tessa Klaassen in their Revo T1 Plus GTR experienced minor navigation issues that set them back. And here's confirmation of the top 10 after the Castrol qualifier. Lartgun and Cummings blitzed the field to record victory in 8 minutes and 38 seconds. They finished 2 seconds ahead of Els and Kierna, who recorded another stellar qualifying performance. Mariawa and Kazle were in third, tied with Baragwanath and Kramer. Only 38 seconds covered the entire top 10, who went into a draw to determine the final starting positions for Stage 1. After the draw, it was Guy Bottrell who would open the road on Stage 1, placing even more pressure on the man from KZN, as well as his navigator Dennis Murphy. Mariawa and Kazle would be the second car out, with Els and Kierna heading out third. Interestingly, Latagan elected to start Stage 1 as the 10th car on the road, which meant that he had had to contend with plenty of dust, but also a route that had been prepared by the preceding 9 cars. All factors that could make a significant difference, but before we get into the details of Stage 1, let's take a moment to learn about the role of the navigator or co-driver in each car.
So there's no question that the drivers are the stars of the show when it comes to rally raid racing. But if you think about it, real VVIPs get chauffeur driven. And I'm talking about these guys, the navigators, like Brett Cummings from Tgrsa Racing.
So over here we've got a thing called a Rally Safe. This is the device that sort of times us and makes sure that we follow the right route. We've got a road book over here which gives us instructions at incremental distances which we tie up to the trip distances that we've followed. We've got reset buttons on the floorboard over here which resets the trip meter incremental distances.
The road book is descriptive at some points, but at some points there's no note that says you're going to change direction from left to right. So we glance at the GPS. So we use the GPS to help our drivers to tell them, okay, it's a 1 kilometer straight. However, there's twisty turns in between. So now you need to read from the GPS and tell a driver if it's a medium, fast or slow corner coming up left to right, or kink, or just watch out for the rock. You need to kink around the rock or a tree. So then we use the GPS.
We've got a GPS just to confirm if we're on the track or not. But over and above that, we've got a few other things that we need to monitor. So we need to check on everything that's going on the dashboard, monitor, in critical sort of values, tire pressures, fuel pressures, oil pressures, temperatures, all those sorts of things. And yeah, we also control the speed of the car if there's speed zones. So we've got pit limiters in those areas. So there's a lot of other things other than navigating that we do.
But what is tricky is we do a lot of wheel spin and a lot of jumps. So what happens is the wheels tend to go faster. So I'm forever catching up on my trip just to bring it down to the right numbers. These cars are going so fast. It's literally left, right. You can't even, it's just seconds. 100 meters in a second, pretty much. So every 100 meters, I count down by seconds, almost. That's how fast these things are going.
You have to eat in the morning, drink your motion sickness tablets, and just go about the day as it is, because you have to have something in your stomach. If you don't have something in your stomach, then all the adrenaline is just going into your stomach, and then it's not good for you.
So I've got some tricks up my sleeve. I use ginger for that. I'm not going to divulge too much. It goes into my socks, but it works for me. And yeah, I struggled in the beginning, and it seems to have gone away. So keep doing what I'm doing.
Now that we know that the navigator does more than just help to change flat tires, let's get into the meat of the opening stage of the Tgrsa Safari 1000. As we saw earlier, it was Bottrell who would open the road, followed by Variawa, Els, Baragwanath and Tgrsa. At just 100 kilometers in length, stage 1 was certainly not the longest of the race, but this was still a serious chunk of distance. And while it would be tricky to make up time over such a relatively short stage, it was extremely easy to get it wrong. Johan de Bruyn and Adrian Roots in their Redline Revo T1 secured a 10th spot, finishing 5 minutes and 52 seconds behind the stage winners. Their consistent performance kept them in the top 10, which was quite remarkable, as they were punching well above their weight. A solid performance setting the Odacure crew up for a strong weekend, if they managed to capitalize on their Friday position.
I haven't seen the times really, but because the Highlands is also still in the mix.
Ahead of de Bruyn and Roots came Eben Besson and Leander Pinot in their hashtag Team Hilux Rally Raid Toyota Hilux. They were just 6 seconds quick at this point than De Bruyn and Roots, and while Bassan would be hoping to make up time to the crews ahead of him, he'd do well to keep an eye on his rearview mirrors too. Still, a great performance by the man from the Lowveld.
So yeah, no, like a nice event, but quite a lot of rocks on the end of the race, and we had to take it easy, but we got it.
The first of the top-class cars set the 8th fastest time on the day. The spot belonged to Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen, driving a Neil Woolridge Motorsport Ford Ranger T1+. Affectionately known as Bangers and Nash, the man from Ermelo, together with his Praetorian co-driver, made no bones about their business, setting the 8th fastest time of the day. Just 4 minutes 42 seconds separated them from the head of the field, and Vorsi had reason to be happy.
Early days we haven't done 10% of the whole route, but yeah, it's tough. It's tight and twisty and fast in some sections and technical, but it's very nice.
Navigation was a key challenge in the Waterberg, and while some crews nailed it, others, like Brian Baragwana and Leonard Kramer, in their Century Racing CR7 Twin Turbo, lost some time as they picked their way towards the finish. The car itself ran like clockwork, and it was clear that BB would be a force to be reckoned with towards the end of the race.
Really hard on the tyres, this terrain. It's hard pack and it's very busy, and there's you know, some areas get really rocky and some areas have got some really tough vegetation.
Fischer and Batis Buckner have been improving hand over fist this year. When they first started Rally Raid racing, the Lowveld brothers tended to overdrive their hashtag Team Hilux Rally Raid Toyota Hilux, but they seem to have steadied the ship somewhat and have been posting solid results. Stage 1 of the Safari 1000 was no exception, as they went just 4 minutes and 3 seconds slower than the leaders. A great result given the tricky terrain.
Yeah, look, it went well today. The qualifying went well. The first loop also went well. Some navigation issues.
Were it not for a puncture near the end of the stage, Tgrsa Racing SA's Guy Bottrell and Dennis Murphy may well have placed their Hilux IMT ever higher up the order. Even so, they finished the stage just 3 minutes and 27 seconds behind the stage winners, despite having to stop and change a tyre, clearly showing that they had the pace to challenge for victory.
We knew being first on the road would be tricky, but we're doing 1,000 Ks, so today was only 100 Ks.
It wasn't all plain sailing for the two Ford crews, but despite a challenging start, Lance Woolridge and Kenny Gilbert managed to bring their NWM Ford Ranger home in the 4th best time of the day. They were just 44 seconds slower than teammates Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer, who went 3rd fastest on the Friday of the race. While the two Ford crews would obviously have preferred to be at the head of the field, they were well placed for the remainder of the weekend.
I think tomorrow is going to be faster with a lot more of what we did today, and then Sunday even tighter, so I think there's still a lot more to come.
But yeah, we encountered quite a bit of dust, but it's okay. I mean, the guys were quite good at moving. I think we passed 5 or so people.
Talking about challenges, Janelle de Villiers and Alvin Fong faced some of their own as they made their way through stage 1. Some navigational challenges slowed them down in the opening stage, but even so, they finished just 1 minute and 59 seconds behind the winners, and importantly also 30 seconds ahead of the first of the Ford crews. They'd have some work to do over the rest of the weekend though.
We caught a couple of guys and so we lost a bit of time in the dust, but otherwise clean run.
This meant that the stage 1 victory went to none other than Henk Lartigan and Brett Cummings in their Tgrsa Hilux IMT Evo. The factory team had taken the spoils during qualifying, but elected to start as the 10th car on the road. They made the most of the position, dominating the opening stage and building an early lead of 2 minutes and 2 seconds over their teammates. A powerful performance that sent a clear message to their competitors.
It was a gamble going further back because we knew we'd catch some cars. We did end up catching 2 of the cars.
Just outside the top 10, 3 red-lined motorsport teams showed strong performances despite challenges. Prince Hofstra and Wade Harris finished 7 minutes and 25 seconds behind Larkin and Cummings, while Johan and Van der Horn ended 7 minutes and 25 seconds behind. Chris Viss and Albertus Fenter had a puncture and finished 7 minutes and 27 seconds behind the stage winners. The Dutch couple, Dave and Tessa Klaassen, were 8 minutes and 35 seconds off the lead. And Jürgen Schroeder and Rikus Fourie completed the top 15, 8 minutes and 35 seconds behind. Also, spare a thought for Daniel Schroeder and Ryan Bland in their brand new WCT VW Amarok. The pair struggled with a broken side shaft near the end of the qualifying race, and the problem reared its ugly head again during stage 1. This time it was more terminal as we caught up with the affable German as he parked his machine not far from the start.
Yeah, I don't know. Not so happy, but I'm sure the guys will figure out what happened and then we make it strong and, maybe you can start again tomorrow.
By the time the engines had grown silent in the Bushveld, it was Lartgun and Cummings who topped the standings. We had De Villiers and Vonk just 2 minutes and 2 seconds behind them, while Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer in the first of the Fords was just 30 seconds further back. 4 different manufacturers appeared on the top 10 list, with De Bruyn and Ritz keeping their noses clean to sneak into the overall top 10, one of only 2 Class T1 cars to perform at this level, the other being Eben Basson and Leander Pinot, who were the best part of a minute faster than De Bruyn and Ritz. This was the first day of an action-packed 3-day event. The dust may have settled over the Bushveld, but the Tgrsa Safari 1000 was far from over. The Saturday of the race would bring stages 2 and 3, each sporting 189 kilometers. 2 more stages would follow on the final day of the event, bringing the total race distance up to nearly 900 kilometers over 3 days. Join us again next week as we bring you all the thrills and spills from the Saturday and Sunday of the inaugural Tgrsa Safari 1000 in Kuduskorp, Limpopo. All the action from the first day of the 2024 Tgrsa Safari 1000 was brought to you by Toyota, #Team Hilux Rally Raid, Ford, Castrol and ICANN, in association with the SA RRC.